Hey guys, it's Libby, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about online college versus real, normal, in-person college, because I've gone to both, and I know a bunch of you guys are heading off into your college years, or maybe you're in college now and you're just curious about the differences between the two. I thought that I would share, and yeah, so let us get started. So for those of you who don't know, I went to a normal in-person college for 2 years or 4 semesters. I went to Columbia College, Chicago, and was studying ASL interpreting. Now I will say that it is an art school, so it's not completely normal per se, but it's still a good representation of what an in-person college is. And then I spent 3 semesters or 1 year at Gallaudet University online. And Gallaudet University is the university for the deaf, so it's not, again, normal completely, but again, it's still a good depiction of what an online college program would look like. I studied deaf studies there. So one big obvious difference is that for online college, there's no class to physically attend, usually. So most online programs will just give you your information for the week, give you a PowerPoint, give you a lecture, whatever, for the week, and then just set you on your own and you do it on your own time. However, I will say that some online programs or online classes, you do have to be there at a certain time. Like, I've heard of some classes where they're like, show up Wednesday at 9 a.m. I'm giving you guys a live lecture or something like that, you know? So while at online college you probably won't have to attend at a certain time, in-person college you probably will. Now, I grew up with the idea that when you went to college you didn't have to go to class anymore. Like, I thought, for some reason that was just an idea that I had in my head. But at the college that I went to, you did have to go to class. If you missed too many classes, you failed, which was not what I thought college was. I'll say that. I was pretty bummed out when I learned that. But that was just my college. Other colleges, they don't give a crap if you show up or not. If you pass the class, you pass the class. But sometimes it varies by college, sometimes it varies just by professor. But yeah, that's kind of things that I wanted to point out about attendance between online college and real college. Kind of for either one, you may or you may not have to show up to a class. Again, obviously online college, it's less likely that you'll have to show up at a certain time, but for in-person college, it's more likely that you'll have to show up to a class. Now I want to talk about lectures. How are lectures given? So obviously at an in-person college, it's pretty obvious how they're given. The teacher stands up and they tell you stuff. Maybe they'll have a PowerPoint, maybe they'll show you some videos. You know, it's like a normal class, duh. But at an online college, obviously it's a little bit different. So I've had some teachers who would just post a video of themselves lecturing, and because I went to Gallaudet University, the University for the Deaf, a lot of my lectures were in ASL. Some of them had captions, some of them didn't. So if you're just curious about the Gallaudet programs, some of them will have captions, some of them won't. Another way that I got information during my online college classes was just through like PowerPoints, like a teacher would just send a PowerPoint. Another really popular one was sending readings, like pages and pages and pages of scanned readings that were like scanned onto the computer. Like maybe if you were in class, they would have gave it to you as a handout, but because they can't give it to you, they give it to you scanned on the computer. And personally, I find that so difficult to read from, just like trying to follow chapter book line by line on a computer screen. I just hated doing that. So that is one way that they'll give you your information. Another way is just as if you were in a normal class, they'll tell you to buy a book or check out a book, and then you'll have to just read a chapter they assign to you or whatever. So that's the way that things are taught. So now I want to talk about assignments. So I will say that growing up and going through school, all my teachers would say, when you go to college, you're not going to have assignments to boost your grade. You're just going to have a test and an exam, and that's all your grade's going to be based on. Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I'm going to fail the class. But I found that in my college, at least, there were a lot of assignments. There was homework. There were in-class assignments. All these different things that I got points for and that I got graded on. Now, I will say that that was just my experience in my college at Columbia. But yours could be different. Maybe you'll take a chem class where you just take 2 exams for the semester and that's all you got. So that could still be true for other colleges, but I'm just saying that at my college, that wasn't true. I got a bunch of assignments, which is good and bad, because it's good because then you do have more things for your grades to be based off of, and then it's bad because you've got to do assignments. Ugh. But, you know, you win some, you lose some, right? So for online college, assignments are a little bit different. Obviously, writing papers was a big one for me in my classes, just doing other short assignments and turning those in. Additionally, because I went to Gallaudet University and it was the University for the Deaf, it was a bilingual program, meaning ASL and English were both meant to be used. So I did turn in some assignments in ASL, like I would record myself answering questions or giving a little presentation and turning that in. So because I did have that at my school, there is a possibility, I would imagine, that at some other online programs you would have to like give a speech and record yourself giving that speech and turn that in. However, I can't say from my personal experience because I never turned in anything video English, but I imagine that some programs might do that. So there's that, and now I want to move on to tests. So obviously at an in-person college, you know what a test or exam looks like. I don't really need to explain that to you. But at online college, there's kind of two ways the tests and exams can be administered. The first way is the way that my college did it, and it was just, they gave me the exam and I was on my own with it. Meaning I could look at my notes, I could Google things, and so forth. There was no such thing as a closed book exam. So for me, in my experience with online college exams, they weren't really exams, you know, and I didn't get that many of them because of that. Most things were just given to me as an assignment because they knew that you would look at your notes and stuff like that. So it was kind of like, well, what's the point of calling it a test when it's not a test? So there's that, but there is another way that I've heard of some other online colleges or online classes administering their tests. It's where you've got to be taking the test on a computer that has a webcam and also a computer that can record its own screen. So when you're taking that test or that exam, you're being monitored by somebody. Somebody is watching you through your webcam take your exam to make sure that you aren't looking at notes, to make sure that you aren't going over to the side and Googling things. And they'll also be monitoring your screen on your computer to make sure of the same thing. So that obviously is a lot more work, and it probably costs some money, which would probably just be part of your class fees or something like that. But there is that other way to do tests and exams. I personally never had a test or exam like that. Thankfully, that would have sucked. But I know that that is a thing, so I want you guys to be aware of that. Now I want to talk about communicating with your professors. This is kind of obvious. When you're in in-person class, you got two options. You can go to your professor and talk to them, or you can send them an email, you know what I mean? Whereas online college, your only option is to email them. Surprise, surprise. So at an in-person college, usually a professor has office hours, which is where they'll be at their office or their classroom, and you can go in and see them and like ask them for help or ask them a question, whatever. At my online college, some of my professors did have office hours as well. While you couldn't actually go in and visit them, obviously, you could call them or video chat them or whatever to contact them during their office hours, and they would be there to answer you. Peers. Now I want to talk about working with peers. So when you're at an in-person college, you might have group assignments, or you might just be working with your peers just because it's helpful. And that's easy to do when you're in an in-class situation. So online college is a little bit different. Obviously, you're never with the people, so you can't really make those relationships. Another thing is that you're probably never going to be online at the same time they are, like chatting together or anything like that. I will say that I had a million discussion board assignments, which is where I'd have to post a comment on a discussion board and then go back and comment on some of my peers' comments as well. So while I was interacting with my peers, I never really felt like I built a connection with any of them. There were some that I was in like every single class with, but I still didn't feel connected to them. Like if I had a question about an assignment or if I wanted to vent or something, I didn't really feel comfortable going to any of my peers for that, just because we weren't really friends, you know? So you don't make friends at online college. I will say that. I didn't make any. You might, who knows, you could be the person who makes the friend at the online college, but I didn't make any. I want to now talk about level of difficulty. So I kind of was under the impression that online college would be easier. And in some ways, it is easier. Like, you don't have to show up to a class. You don't have any real tests. You kind of are just turning shit in whenever you feel like, you know what I mean? So in some ways it is easier. And I did find a lot of the assignments to be pretty easy, honestly. But I did take one class through SNHU, which, if you haven't seen the commercial, Southern New Hampshire University is like an online college that's really big about saying, like, come back to school and fulfill your dreams, you know? And when I see those commercials, I think, okay, this is a college targeted for middle-aged people who want to go back and fulfill their dreams, right? So, like, they've been out of school for decades and it's not going to be that hard. But I will say that the class I took through SNHU was the hardest class I took. I took an Intro to Lit class through there, and it was hard, man. They had really high expectations, higher than I expected, and it could have just been that one professor. Maybe all the other professors suck and give you really low expectations, but I will say that I was surprised at the level of difficulty the SNHU class had. I will say that I also took a class online through Miami University, Miami of Oxford, Ohio University. I took an Intro to Disabilities course through there, and that was about the same level of difficulty as my Gallaudet classes were. Just kind of like moseying on through it. It was pretty easy, to be honest. But I will say that at Columbia College Chicago, that was an art school, so the expectations there were also pretty low. Like in my English courses, like I got like great grades on all my papers, and I like to think that I'm a good student. Like I did well on my ACT, all that, but expectations were definitely not what I expected college expectations to be. Obviously, if you're going to Harvard and that's your in-person college that you're making a comparison to, a little bit different. If you're going to some other Ivy League or just some other really hard college, you know, duh, it's gonna be hard. But I do want to say, don't discount online colleges. Some of it was hard. Now, most of it, again, was easy, but it can be hard. So I learned that through SNHU. So thank you, SNHU, for giving me a little more respect for online college programs. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is which one did I like more. So Columbia College, I had a lot of like personal issues while I was there. Like I had issues with bullying and stuff like that, which is crazy because it's college, and like who bullies people in college. So I did have some things that made my experience sort of negative. But even then, I will say that going to an in-person college was my favorite. While I did have real tests, while I did have to show up to classes, I liked that because it felt like college, and because I got to make real connections with my professors, while I got to make connections with my peers. I will say that I did prefer that experience over the online college experience. Now, by the time I had gone through Columbia for 2 years and got bullied and all that crap, and because I was changing my path and everything was just so about Columbia, coming over to Gallaudet was definitely the right decision for me, and an online program was the right decision for me because I was just looking to finish fast. Because I'm planning on going to grad school, I wasn't trying to waste any time during my undergrad just moseying along through some program, and I just wanted to be done. So it was definitely the right move for me to make, and it might be the right move for you to make. Just keep in mind that you're not going to be making any friends, you're not going to have a normal college experience, and that might be what you're looking for. If you're looking to work full-time while you go to college, online college is probably the way for you to go. I worked almost full-time while I was going to Gallaudet University online, and I found it to be really manageable because I was able to do my work whenever it was convenient for me. Whereas if you're going to an in-person college, you need to make sure that your class schedule doesn't interfere with your work schedule, or rather the other way around. You need to show up to class at a certain time, then you need to show up to work at a certain time, then you still need to do your homework. So working a lot while you're in an in-person college is definitely tougher than when you're doing it at an online college. So that is my take on that. I will say that I found that I had to put in a lot less time to my online classes than my in-person classes, because my in-person classes I was already at 3 hours a week, and then I had to do the assignments on top of that. Whereas for online college, it was kind of like everything was all wrapped up into one short little bit of time. My online program, I found that I didn't really even have to read all the readings. I didn't have to watch all the lectures to get through the class. Whereas if you're at an in-person class, you have to, just because you've got to show up. If you have to show up, I suppose. So it really just, like, I found online college to be less of a time commitment. So if that's something you're looking for, definitely online college is probably the way you want to go. Yeah. I guess that's kind of all I have to say about it. I mean, I'm sure I'll think of other things and be like, dang it, I meant to talk about that. If I think of anything else that's really important, I'll put it in the description of the video, but I kind of think that I got most of it. So, yeah. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video and found it to be really educational and helpful to you. If you've got any questions for me, leave it and I'll try to answer them, or maybe you guys can help each other out and answer them if you've been to an online college or a real in-person college. I keep calling it real college, but they're both real college. Yeah. But that is that. I hope you guys enjoyed again and have a wonderful week / weekend, day, night, whatever. Yeah.